people are pushing and studying. I'm told that presidential is on the 5th of May. Okay, let's continue. So the question reads, Hachitoshi Limited produces and sells a single product. The following information has been extracted from the budgets and standard cost of Hachitoshi Limited for the month of July and August. So this question was an assignment last year. So we have got production there, which is 16,500, and then we have got 15,000 in August. Then the sales, we have got 12,500 in July, and then 18,000 in August. Then we have got costs. Okay, so under costs, we have got direct material, direct labor, and we have got variable production costs. Now, if you look at that one there, direct material, it is 198 and 180 for July and August respectively. Then direct labor, 132 and 120 for July and August respectively. Then variable production cost are 247,500 and 225,000 for July and August respectively. Now, why are these values different? Hello?
Sir, what's your question again? Sorry, I was trying to take down the question.
I'm asking, why are these values different? The direct material, direct labor, and variable production cost. Why are they different for the 2 months? Each and every month has its own costs, which looks to be different, of which the fixed production cost is the same.
Can I try? Maybe because what they have different production units for each month.
And why is the fixed production cost the same?
Because it's standard. It doesn't change. It's fixed. No matter how much has been produced, it's a fixed cost.
Okay. So take note. Your analysis is just okay. So we said last time that these three, okay, they are component that makes up what we call as the variable costs. Okay? And we say that variable cost, basically, it varies with the volume of output. So these differences are as a result of the changes in the volume of output. As you can see, the cost in July are more than those costs that we have in August, because in July we had a production of 16,500 units. So direct material, direct labor and variable production overheads. They are based on the production. Okay, then this fixed production cost, which is 375, this is a fixed cost. So we say that fixed cost, these are cost that remains the same regardless of the volume of output. Okay, so the question continues to say the normal level of activity is 15,000, okay, per month. Then we are also told that variable selling overhead, it's 8% of the sales value. Then the question continues to say the selling price per unit is 80 kwacha. Okay, required. Calculate the production cost per unit for the month of July using marginal costing and absorption costing method. Okay, what do we do? How do we solve that one? Want to find the marginal production cost per unit and also the absorption cost per unit. Hello? Okay, what is a direct material cost per unit here? Please let's be discussing uh, because failure to discuss, that's what causes us to start wondering where the end values are coming from at the end of the lesson. Hello? Okay, so we'll start with the marginal costing. So we say marginal production cost per unit. So we'll start with our direct material cost. So I want to find for a unit. So if you check out our question, What was the direct material cost there?
$198,000 for July.
And how many units?
For 16,500.
So for us to find for a unit, we'll just have to say 198,000 divided by the number of units, which is 16,500. So if you divide this, what are we getting?
$12.
That's 12. Huh? If you want, you can even use August. There's no problem. Where you're going to get 180,000 divided by 15,000 units. What are we getting?
Still getting 12.
Okay, questions? So labor, you have got 132. So we said direct labor (132 divided by 16,500). What are we getting there?
8.
Then we have got variable production overheads. Is my screen visible? So how much is the variable production overhead? Hello? Variable production overhead.
So I found 15.
How was the 15 found?
247,500 divided by the production unit. Divide by 16,500.
16,500.
Yes.
Is there anything that is included on the marginal production cost per unit? So we said that marginal production cost per unit, it just consists of the three: variable production, direct material, direct labor, and variable production overhead. So if we add there, you are going to have what we call as the marginal production cost per unit. So what will be the value there? That will be 35 kwacha. Okay, questions? Questions?
The hand, sir.
Good afternoon, Baba.
Good afternoon, how are you?
You started a long time ago, or this is the first question you are doing? The visitors from church. So
We're just answering part one of the question. And this is the first screen that
okay. Let me just capture the question.
this is the first screen that I've written.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Let me just capture the question before you. Thanks.
Okay. So we are told that marginal production cost per unit, we are dealing with direct material, direct labor, and variable production overheads. So what we were finding there was per unit. Our direct material was 12 kwacha. Our direct labor was 8 kwacha. Then our variable production overhead was 15 kwacha. If you add these three, it's going to give us 35 kwacha. Okay. So I remember I also mentioned last time that this basically tells us that under the marginal production cost per unit, or let me say the marginal production, so under the marginal costing system, opening inventory, closing inventory, and the production will be valued at 35 kwacha when you are using marginal costing system. Okay, is that clear? Okay, we'll look at the
So
absorption.
now for this one,
Yes, Bwana.
Bwana, just a minute. So for this one, we had to divide, but there's that other question where we just picked it direct from the question.
So the reason why we are dividing here is that we are not given the cost per unit. Okay, we are given the total cost of material, labor, and variable production, not per unit. So we pick it directly in a situation whereby you have been given the cost per unit. Is that clear? Okay, we continue. So under the A part also, we are told that we should also do the same using absorption costing method. Now, we learned last time that absorption costing method is what we call as the full cost, meaning it's supposed to consist of the direct material, direct labor, and variable production overheads. Then it's going to include the fixed production cost per unit. Now, take note, since our fixed production cost, it is not a variable cost, it's fixed in nature. Therefore, it does not depend on the production, but it depends on the budgeted level of activity, or you can call it as the normal level of activity. So in this case, when we are finding the absorption production cost per unit, meaning we are going to divide this 375 with 15,000 so that we can be able to find the cost per unit. I don't know if that's clear.
You said you are going to divide what? I think my network is quite bad.
So I'm saying that the margin, so the absorption production cost per unit, it does not work with the production, but it works with the budgeted level of activity. So in order for us to find the fixed production cost per unit, we will not divide with the production like the way we're doing here. Okay, the fixed cost element will be divided by the budgeted level of activity, or the so-called the normal level of activity. I hope it's clear. Okay, we continue. So we're going to say that absorption production cost per unit So of course, we had our direct material. Direct material cost, okay, where we said we divided 198,000 divided by 16,500, and it gave us a 12th quarter. Then we have our direct labor, where we divided a 132,000 divided by 16,500. It's going to give us the 8th quarter. The variable production overheads, we have the 247 divided by 16,500. It's giving us a 15th quarter. Now, on the fixed production, overheads, okay, this is what we call as the OAR. Here we shall say 375,000 divided by the normal level of activity, which is 15,000. Because it's not based on the production, but it's based on the normal level of activity. So when you divide, what are you getting?
$25.
So when you add, what's the answer?
$60.
That is Kisti. Okay, questions? So that basically tells us that when you're dealing with absorption production costing, your closing inventory, your opening inventory, and your production will be valued at 60 kwacha per unit. Okay, we continue. The number 2 part, the question is saying prepare a profit statement for each of the 2 months using one absorption costing method. Okay, the next one we are told to use marginal costing method, showing clearly the total contribution. Okay, so let's continue. We'll start with the first one, which is the absorption costing. So absorption costing is the operating statement. So we have the 2 months there, not so? We have the August and the July. So we'll just do some demarcation. So let's this be July, and this be August. So we'll start number 1 with the sales revenue. So if you look at our question, how much was the selling price?
80 kwacha.
How many units were sold in July and in August?
12,500 and 18,000.
Okay. So we shall say that 12,500 multiplied by 80 kwacha, then 18,000 multiplied by 80 kwacha. So what are the total sales in July and what are the total sales in August?
In July, it's 1 million.
In July, it's 1 million. Then in August,
1,440,000.
1,440,000. Okay. And now we're going to say less absorption cost of sales. So we're going to have our opening inventory. Now, do we have an opening inventory in July? Do we have an opening inventory in July?
15,000 units.
Okay, where do you get the 15,000 units?
From the statement that says normal level activities 15,000 units per month.
No, this is the normal level of activity, meaning it is a budgeted activity, not the opening inventory.
Oh, okay.
So there's no opening inventory there for July.
Okay.
But what is the closing inventory for July? Do we remember the formula for closing inventory? We said closing inventory is equal to to opening inventory plus production
Minus sales.
minus sales. So the opening is 0. What is the production in July?
16,500.
16,500. The sales?
12,500.
12,500. Okay, so what is the closing inventory?
4,000.
That's 4,000 units. So if the closing inventory is 4,000 for July, that means that will be the opening inventory for August. Because the closing inventory for July becomes the opening inventory for August. Do we agree with that statement?
Yes.
Okay. So here we shall say 0 multiplied by 60 kwacha for July. Then for August, shall say 4,000 multiplied by 60 kwacha. So here July, it's 0. August, what is the closing inventory?
$240,000.
That's 240,000. So next we have got the production cost. I think here we mentioned that 16,500 were produced. Multiply by 60 kwacha. That's the absorption production cost per unit. Then in August, we produced 15,000. Multiply by 60 kwacha. So what's the production cost in July?
$990,000.
So 990,000. Then August.
For August, it's 900,000.
Okay, questions? Okay. So when we add, what are we getting there? We're going to have the total production cost. So what's the total production cost in July?
990,000.
990,000. Then in August,
1,140,000.
1,140,000. Then what do we do next? Going to say less closing inventory. Now we know already that closing inventory in July it is 4,000 units by Skisti. It's giving us a 240. Now, what is a closing inventory in August? Let's go back to where we did the calculations. So closing inventory in August. Going to say closing inventory. Remember, the opening is 4,000 in this case. 4,000 units. What about the production?
1,000.
That's 15,000. Then we sold how many units?
18,000.
Okay. What will be the closing inventory?
1,000.
So the 1,000 will be valued at 60 kwacha. 60 kwacha each. So our closing inventory is going to be 60,000. So what's the difference? $990 minus $240.
750.
That's 750. Then in August,
It's 1,080,000 kwacha.
so 1,080,000. So the difference, we're going to have the gross profit. So in July, what's the gross profit?
$250,000.
That's 250,000. Then August,
$360,000.
360,000. So what comes next? Going to say expenses. What expenses do we have? We have the fixed selling, which is 60,000. Then remember, we also have got the 8%, the variable selling overheads, 8% of the sales value. Okay. So fixed selling overheads, we have a 60,000 and also a 60,000. Then I've got the variable selling overheads, where we are told that is 8% of the sales value. So what is 8% of the 1,000? What is 8% of the sales value?
$80,000.
So here we have 80,000. Then 8% of the 1,440,000.
$115,200.
115,200. Done. So if you add there, what are your total expenses?
July 140,000.
140,000 here. And the next one,
$175,200.
175,200. Okay. Questions at this stage before we flip to the other side? Okay. So we're going to subtract now our gross profit minus total expenses. What are we getting?
For July, it's 110,000.
110,000. So what we are getting is what we are calling as the unadjusted absorption costing profit. $110,000. Then for August,
184,800.
so 184,800. Why am I saying the unadjusted? We need to calculate the component to do with under or over absorption. So as we can see here, the company's plan was to produce 15,000 units. But in July, how many units did they produce?
16,500.
So was there an under absorption or over absorption? When we say under, we're basically saying, did they produce less than they budgeted? When we say over,
It was
did they
it
produce
was over
by how many units?
1,500.
1,500, right? So those 1,500 units, just multiply them with the OAR, the overhead absorption rate, which we found here as 25 kwacha. As 25 kwacha. So 1,000 multiplied by 25 kwacha.
37,500.
That is 37 what? 500. So that 37,500 becomes an extra cost. So what do? We just have to add it to this value here. So it becomes an extra benefit here. So you just have to add it to this value. But instead of just doing it as in a quicker way, the way I've done it, I know maybe there are people who are like me who can get confused. So what do? We will look at the fixed production overheads absorbed, meaning how much was supposed to be the fixed production overhead using the units that were produced. So we'll say fixed production overheads absorbed, meaning you get your production, like in July it was 16,500, then multiply by the OAR. In August it was 15,000, multiply also by the OAR. Okay, so when you multiply here, 15,000, so 16,500 multiplied by 25, what are we getting? 5 by 25.
412,500.
Then for August, it will give us 375. Now, the fixed production overhead incurred. Meaning the one that we have in the question now. It is a 375. Okay? So take note. The difference of what was absorbed and what was incurred, it is what we describe as an under absorption or over absorption. So it becomes an over absorption if the value that we get is a positive value, and it becomes an under absorption if the value that we get is a negative value. Or if it becomes difficult for you to determine from here, you can just look at the way the question is. In July, we produced 16,500, of which our normal production was 15,000. So our production was more than the normal production. That tells us that we're going to have an over absorption. In August, our production was 15,000, and our normal production was also 15,000. Do we have an over absorption or we have an under absorption? Hello? In August, our production was equal to our normal level of activity. Is there an under absorption or an over absorption? Okay, give me the difference here. 412,500 minus 375.
37,500.
That's the one that you got at first time.
Yes.
So for the other one, we don't have an under or over absorption because it was giving us a 0. Right? What we
Zero.
produced
Yes.
was equal to what was budgeted. So we can do the additions there to find what we call as the adjusted absorption costing profit.
Mm, 147,500
For which month?
for
July.
July. Yes.
Then August.
184,800.
Okay, questions? Okay, we can look at the B part if there is no question. The B part was saying marginal costing method, clearly showing the total contribution. I'm sure you know that total contribution is a difference between the sales revenue and the marginal cost of sales. Okay, so as we prepare that, we should be able to show what will be the contribution for each month. So we continue. I know absorption is the one that becomes a bit tricky, but the marginal is very simple and straightforward. So we say operating profit statement. So July and August. So we'll start again. Sales revenue. I think we had found the sales revenue previously. What were the sales for July?
1 million.
That was 1 million. What about August?
1,440,000.
It was 1,440,000. So here we're going to say less marginal cost of sales. Start with our opening inventory. Remember, these will be valued at 35 now, not so. What will be what was our opening inventory in July? How many units?
0.
0. What about the opening in August?
4,000 units.
4,000 units, huh? So it will be 0 by 35. Then I've got 35 by 4,000 units. So here it is 0. What is the opening in August?
140,000.
140,000. Next, we have the production cost. We produced 16,500 at 35, then 15,000 at 35. What is the production in July?
577,500.
It's 5 what? 77,500. Next, 15,000 multiplied by 35.
525.
It's 525. Then when we add, we're going to get the total production cost. What's the value in July?
577,500.
577,500. Then in August,
665.
okay, questions? So closing inventory. Here we had 4,000, okay, in July, and the 1,000 in August.
In July, it's 140,000.
In August,
35,000.
so the difference
For July, it's 437,500.
is 437.
500.
August,
For August is 630.
630. There's another variable cost component. Can you identify what that variable cost component is in this question? The 8% of the sales value. Are we able to see it?
Yes.
So what is 8% of the 1,000? So 1 million, sorry, in July?
It's 80,000.
So variable selling what? Selling expenses. That is 80,000. Then 8% of the 1,440,000. I think we had found something like
115,200.
115,200. When we add there, we're going to have what we call as the marginal cost of sales. What is the answer in July?
517,500.
517,500. August,
That's 745, 200.
745, 200. So the difference now is what we are calling as contribution.
So in July, the contribution is 482,500.
482,500. in August.
Uh, 694,800.
Okay, questions before we proceed? Okay, we look at the fixed cost now. Remember, we are told that fixed costs are deducted from the contribution under the marginal costing system. What do we have as fixed costs? We have got the fixed production overheads. That was 375, if I remember. We also have got the fixed selling overheads. What was the value for fixed selling overheads?
60,000.
So if we add, what are we getting?
435.
435 and 435 this side. We'll subtract from the contribution.
For July, it's 47,500.
July 47,500. Then August.
$259,800.
259,800. Okay. So unless there are questions, Okay, so the last part of the question, we are taught to prepare a statement that reconciles two profit figures found in two above for each of the 2 months. Okay, so we can start with the marginal profit. So we shall say that profit reconciliation statement. So we have July here, and we have August. So what is our marginal costing profit?
$47,500 for July.
August 50, sorry, 250,
$259,800.
800. 47,500, 259,800. Now, what do we do there? We need to add the closing inventory. Right? Now, that closing inventory that we're adding, take note, it will be added at OAR, meaning the fixed production cost per unit, which was a 25 kwacha, if you remember. Because what causes this difference is as a result of valuation in inventory. The difference in valuation in inventory. The other one is valued at the full cost. The other one is valued at the marginal cost. You remember how this 25 was found, right? The fixed production cost per unit is 25 kwacha. Sure, you're able to see it there. So that's what we use when we are reconciling. So our closing inventory in July, we said it was 4,000. You multiply by the 25 kwacha. Then our closing in August, it was a 1,000. Then you multiply by a 25 kwacha. What would be the value?
For July, it will be 100,000.
Okay, what about August?
$25,000.
24,000.
So when we add, you are going to have 147,500. Then here,
$284,800.
then we'll less the closing inventory, sorry, the opening inventory. OAR. Now, in July, our opening inventory was 0. In August, what was our opening inventory?
4,000.
4,000.
It's going to give us 100. Huh? So here we are lessing. So what we are going to get is the absorption costing profit. July, it's 147, 500. August is going to be 184, 800.
800.
Are these the absorption costing profit?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so I've done the reconciliation. If it differs